All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Jeff France. Can everyone hear me okay? Super weird to not have speakers blaring my voice out, but I'll trust the headphones are working. So my name is Jeff France. I'm with T-Mobile, and I'm joined on stage with Peter Determin from the CEO of DeepSync. And we're really excited to talk to you today about some really innovative data solutions that we're bringing to market that we feel are going to help consumers reconnect with brands through advertising and marketing. And if you think about it, I want to click the slide. This was a hard stat for me to get my head around, but as consumers, we're exposed to thousands of ads every single day. And when I first heard that, I was like, how is that possible? But when you think about how much time we spend on our device, we're on social media, connecting with our friends, we're constantly being exposed to ads. We consume a lot of video content. We're also receiving messages and ads from brands. We consume news articles. Think of all of these platforms, we're constantly being exposed to advertising. And I'm not up here to say advertising is bad, but I'm saying the ads we see could be more connected to who we are as consumers. And so that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about today. On the other side of that, you also have marketers. They're experiencing pain points, right? They think they're getting the right message to the right consumer at the right time, but they're using bad or incomplete data. And so the message isn't landing home, it's not personalized, it doesn't feel relevant to us as consumers, and that's leading to wasted ad spend. And for anybody that knows the T-Mobile brand, you've probably heard we call ourselves, or we brand ourselves the uncarrier. What does that mean? We're constantly looking for ways that we can add consumer value in ways that other telcos and our competitors don't think of. And so we look at this as an opportunity to take these data solutions and provide value to consumers beyond how you think of us today, which is just core wireless. And so Peter's going to talk to you a little bit about what some of these solutions are and how you can use these workflows and these data solutions to really bring personalization to consumers at scale, which also help marketers get the right message to the right consumer at the right time. Peter?
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. Hopefully everybody can hear me. This is the first time I'm doing it this way, and it's a little bit weird. But thank you all for being here. We're very excited to talk to you about a number of really exciting solutions that we're working on. As Jeff mentioned, we're going to talk about these marketing solutions. Really, we're talking about creating composable marketing workflows. But before we can talk about that, we have to talk about data. As marketers, we are using a huge volume and variety of data today. And that volume and variety of data is only going to increase as it has done so over the last 15 years. As marketers, we have to be very good at using this data to have relevant and personalized conversations with our customers. Moreover, as marketers, we are dealing with an agile or a dynamic set of marketing challenges that we're trying to solve. Think about your day-to-day environment. You have changing company strategies, goals. You have external factors like privacy policies and regulations that are coming into effect. And as you've seen at this conference, the introduction of AI in our day-to-day lives is dramatically changing what we do. So as marketers, we're constantly evolving our strategy of how we deal with that, and we're solving these complex marketing challenges. And in order to do that, we use today these marketing platforms. If you're lucky, as a marketer, you're only using about 10 to 20 different platforms to do your day-to-day job, which is already a crazy amount. If you're less lucky, it's way more than 20, and that's not uncommon at all. And what happens is we use these platforms and with the promise of, great, I have all these bells and whistles, I have all these features, I should be able to solve my specific marketing challenge with these platforms. But the reality is that they don't quite fit the exact need that we have, and we end up having to stitch all these different platforms together, and that becomes the challenge that we end up solving, where we're replicating data between all these disparate platforms to do our jobs. And so let's take a look first at what are some of these different ways that we use data as marketers. Every marketer has access to first-party data. If you're a CPG marketer, you don't have necessarily a lot of first-party data because you don't have that direct interaction with the customer, compared to maybe a retailer who has in-store transaction data, loyalty data, a huge amount of data coming off of their digital e-commerce platform. And so you're collecting all of this data and you start storing it. And as you store that data, the value of that data immediately starts to decline. And in order to prevent that, you need to basically hygiene that data. What's happening is the data is becoming stale very quickly, and so you can hygiene that data to keep it fresh. That allows you to have a very relevant interaction with your customer. It also does something else. It gives you access to much better match rates when you're doing identity resolution. And for those of you who are new to this concept, identity resolution is the act of taking your own first-party data and stitching it to a known identity spine. By doing that, you're able to then start to leverage your customer data in combination with other vendors and partners and customers who can provide you additional value-added data solutions and services. Examples of that as a retailer might be transaction mapping or householding your data. So now instead of looking at the individual, you're looking at the entire household that is attached to that individual that you know from your loyalty program, and you can start marketing and doing analytics at the household level. The other information you might gather is, as you store all this data in your CRM system, you'll realize that you don't necessarily have all of the attributes on all of the customers that you have. And so you might start to flesh that out with third-party data by using enrichment, which allows you to have more of that personalized conversation. Imagine being able to know everybody's birth year or gender when they didn't necessarily provide that to you in the first place. But third-party data can help you flesh out that missing data, again, so you can have that personalized conversation. Expanding then your use cases with third-party data, you can flip into prospecting, where you're going to build lookalike audiences, where you're starting with your ideal customer profile, and then building a prospect audience that you can then start to push out into the advertising ecosystem to run a campaign. Typically, you would use something like enhanced onboarding there to help you get the best match rates on each platform. So the idea there being that you can translate your audience that you're looking to target into a TV, a social, a display, a direct mail campaigns platform so that they can recognize your customers really well, so you can have that conversation. One of the things I'm really excited about is the work we're doing here with Databricks, right? So historically, you would do a lot of copying and pasting and synchronizing of data between all these disparate platforms. By working with Databricks and bringing these solutions into the Databricks environment, we're flipping this whole model on its head. So now instead of pushing the data to the processing, to the functionality, we're bringing the functionality to the data where the data already lives. And so that allows us to do all of these amazing things with limited or no data movement. And that allows us all to really protect the privacy of our data as well. So that's something that you should keep in mind as we go through the rest of this presentation. I'm very excited actually right now to be able to announce to you all that T-Mobile and DeepSync have partnered to bring a highly differentiated data set to market with a focus on marketing and analytics. This data really is comprised of exclusive T-Mobile fully consented audiences on which we have a wealth of data. That data includes information on mobile app engagement, location data, and other interests that we're then able to stitch together with the nationwide data provided by DeepSync, which covers consumer attributes, B2B data, mover data, homeowner data, and so much more. From there, we can then start to build lookalike audiences that we can push out as part of advertising solutions. Why I'm so excited about this? Think about it. This is about as close as you can get to a first-party data signal as you possibly can without owning the data directly as a marketer. So what we're able to do here is to really see, as a user is using their phone, what apps are they using, how are they using those apps, and that becomes a first-party data signal. But also, we see that on all of the competitive apps. So you can use this data to create audiences not only for retargeting or prospecting, but also conquesting. Incredibly powerful data that helps to really flesh out your first-party data customer profile to build that 360-degree view. So now we're starting to get into, okay, let's start to use these solutions. Let's start building these workflows. And this is where, before we dive into that, let me kind of share with you the blueprint that we typically see. The first step is we need to keep this data clean. We need to keep it fresh. I've mentioned this twice now, It's probably the least sexy topic to talk about in advertising, but it's probably one of the most important things you have to do is to keep your data fresh. Why? Every year in the US, nearly 30 million people move. Every year, 45 million professionals change their job. Think about that. As soon as you store the data, it starts to become stale, and you have to really work at keeping it clean, and then you can start to enrich that data with additional data through enrichment. You can do additional customer segmentation. You can build lookalike audiences and really start to understand who your customer is, start to engage with that customer through a variety of platforms using some of the enhanced onboarding and match boosting capabilities. And then close the loop with measurement so you can understand how are these customers interacting with my messaging, with my brand, and is it resonating? And so Jeff's going to walk us through an example of what this looks like with these T-Mobile audiences that I just talked about.
All right, thank you, Peter. So if you guys haven't figured it out yet, Peter is clearly the brains behind this, and I'm just the pretty face. So I get to walk through the nice use case. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about, I talked about T-Mobile being the uncarrier, and something that we talk about in the halls of T-Mobile and that we practice is something that we call customer love. And what that means is we put the customer at the forefront of everything that we do. So literally, if we can't see the customer value in something, we don't pursue that opportunity. And so this is one where, we've had a lot of internal meetings about, all right, what is truly the consumer value that we're bringing here? And so this is a really clean example and just one of many of where we see, hey, how do we access and leverage customer data to bring value to that customer as well as brands and marketers? So below what you see is, a consented consumer of T-Mobile's. And by the way, just before I go any further, consent is a really big part of this program. So we do not do anything with customer data unless we have explicit permission from the customer to do so. And so that's presented through an opt-in, very clearly saying, hey, if you opt in to us using your customer data, we can enhance the ads and offers in your experience across web. And so when a customer raises their hand, we then have permission to start creating really interesting audiences and segments and allow them to experience more enriched marketing. So in this case, we have a consumer that visits a local ski mountain. So I'm personally from Denver, Colorado, so this would be Vail for me. On top of that, we also see them engaging in a ski app. Also, this would be epic for me. So every weekend, family goes up, we go skiing. So we would bucket my family, myself, into an avid skier segment based on what we see, my actions on the network. So once this segment is created, we can then ship that to any ad platform where you might be trying to reach your consumers. Now let's just say REI or Dick's Sporting Goods is looking for this segment. They can now put a relevant ad and offer in front of that consumer, knowing that this is exactly their behavior. It's the right message, it's the right time, and it's going to resonate and feel very personalized for that consumer. And so again, this is incredibly powerful. Having 4 kids, I know how expensive skiing is. I'll absolutely take any offer or discount I can get any day. So this would be super relevant for me based on behavior that's observed across the T-Mobile network. But it's one thing to have a good product, great data. It's quite another to make it very easy and seamless to use. So Peter's going to talk about how with Databricks, we're enabling this to be easy, actionable. Marketers can take this, pick it up off the shelf, and start using it in a very, very seamless way. Peter?
Awesome. Thank you. So this end-to-end workflow that Jeff just talked about is one example of a custom composable marketing workflow that we can now start to build on top of Databricks. This blueprint that we're using here is something that we are very excited to start replicating over and over again. It literally unlocks us from being stuck to these large monolithic platforms and brings agility to our jobs where we can now start to stitch together the right set of listings or applications that together make up an end-to-end marketing solution that works for us, for each one of us in this room individually. You can combine any set of vendors, solutions, data sets to build these solutions, and that's something that we're incredibly excited about and something that we've been working on with the Databricks team. So the example Jeff just walked through is what you see here on the right, but there are lots of other examples. Imagine if you're a retailer and you're trying to understand your in-store shoppers and their purchase behaviors and start to segment based on how their buying patterns are different, you can now start to do this by building a custom workflow and then acting on that outcome. A more traditional variety of that would be starting with the lookalike use case that I mentioned earlier. Where is it not working anymore? We good? Okay. I just saw some people struggling with their microphones or their headphones. More traditional use case would be building a lookalike audience where you start with your first-party customer data, building that lookalike, and then shipping that out into the ecosystem. These are three very simple examples, but just imagine you can now start to build these types of workflows specifically for your use cases and your challenges that you're trying to solve. And I'll walk through this in a little bit more detail, but if you look at this and you imagine on the far left there for you, you've got your data living inside Databricks. You're now hygiening that data with minimal data movement. Now you have these cleansed records that are automatically flowing into an identity resolution service that's available to you. Hopefully you're using a deterministic identity spine. Make sure that when you pick a vendor there, you pick one that has data that's very high quality with scale that is as close to the US population as possible. Be wary of like billions and billions of Americans living in an identity spine because there's not that many of us. That data then flows out of that platform now as IDs. At this point, you can start to drop some of this personal data that otherwise you're pushing everywhere. And so now you're operating on a set of IDs that represent your customers. That flows into a lookalike audience. It builds a prospect audience. Again, more IDs. They get pushed into the ad ecosystem through an enhanced onboarding or a match boosting solution. The use case here is maybe not as relevant as what is now possible, which is each one of these black circles has a common pattern. There's data flowing in, there's processing happening, there's data flowing out. We can now start to stitch all of these together into these composable marketing workflows. That's, I think, the future of marketing. We're going to see a shift moving away from these large monolithic platforms who don't move as fast as you do, as the environment in which we operate. And so being able to leverage this type of technology on top of Databricks is an incredibly powerful tool to have at your fingertips. And so with that, I'm going to pass it to Jeff to close this out.
Awesome. All right. So, we've talked a lot about, data, audiences, some of the solutions that we're bringing to market. But really, kind of going back to at the top, right? We're being exposed to thousands of ads every single day. We just want to make scale and relevancy come back to marketing again. And ads are a currency of the internet, right? They're always going to be there. You opt in, it's not that you're going to see more ads or less ads. You're just going to see more relevant ads. It's going to be a more curated, one-on-one personal experience with the brand and consumer. And so that's really what we're striving to do here with these solutions that we're talking about today. Peter also touched on it. I know I gave a ski example, but you think about everything that we do on these devices, right? We're interacting and engaging with banks. We're interacting and engaging with retail, QSR. We see all of these engagements, all of this interaction over our network. And so we can take all of these experiences and create relevant audiences across so many different verticals. We can customize it, we can make syndicated, we can even measure campaign effectiveness. All of these solutions, we're really excited to bring to market and really help consumers feel reconnected with the brands that they know and love. So if you're interested in what you saw today, definitely follow up with us after the session. I think we have an email maybe on the next slide that you guys can hit, but would love to engage in further conversations. Appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Thank you.